Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about when should you train for Dopey?
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
I saw in a Facebook group today that someone was asking about training for Dopey. Specifically, this person said they're a new runner, they've run a 5K in November, and plans to run more this year. And at the time of recording, I should say that it's January. So this person wants to run more this year and wants to do a marathon in 2026, the marathon at Walt Disney World. And since they're already there, they're wondering if a year is enough time to train for Dopey with their training history. And this is such a common story, right? Like I did it, not with Dopey, but with wine and dine themes. When they were announced, and you know my love for Olaf, I saw the 10K theme as Olaf, and my mindset immediately went to, well, since I'm already there, I might as well do the challenge and get coast to coast, right? Like, I'm already there. But for real, Dopey is a big deal, and wondering if training is possible goes along with when to train for it. So I'm going to go over everything I would tell this person, and it includes when to start training for Dopey for you. So first marathon and first Dopey is doable, especially for runners who have done half marathons. It's kind of doable for the runner who's brand new and wants to do it as a bucket list item, especially before an age. It's doable, but you need to be really strategic with it so you don't get hurt. That's a lot of miles on your body, and you're adding in a lot of new stuff with training. Strengthening, cross-training, figuring out your shoes, everything. It's just a lot. So being really strategic is what is going to make someone who wants to do this successful. And successful being doing it without getting injured and crossing that finish line. So a few things we'll talk about today are things like looking at the calendar, strengthening, cross-training, and your training plan. A few things that we don't have time to cover today but are important to running Dopey without getting injured are things like stretching, the shoes you're wearing, recovery stuff like pain and soreness treatments, and fuel and hydration. Those can be topics for another episode if you'd like. So send me a DM on Instagram if you have questions about those, and I'll record an episode. But today we're talking the calendar, strengthening, cross-training, and your training plan. Okay, so let's get into it. So the calendar. Literally pull out your calendar. Best if you can see the whole year at once and mark out dates that mean you likely won't be able to work out at all. Be completely honest with yourself. If you know Valentine's Day, you go big with your honey with a late night, alcohol, mark off February 15th that you are not working out that day. That's perfectly fine. Or maybe it's just going to be a low-key walking day. You're not 21 anymore, and hangovers last all day or longer for us 35 plus people. That reminds me, I used to work at the fitness center on campus when I was in college and grad school. And after a night out, I would go and run an hour before my shift, and it used to cure my hangover. I don't know what it was, but it worked. Whatever. It sounds miserable to me now. So if there's a day, a celebration, or something like that, that you know you are going to be out late, whether or not you drink alcohol, if you're out late and you know you're not going to want to get up in the morning and you work out in the morning, mark that next day off. Or if you do drink alcohol, mark the next day off because nobody wants to run in a hangover once they're out of college. So anyway, mark off those dates on your calendar that you aren't working out. This could even be a whole week because you're going on vacation. Mark it. I don't plan workouts on Thursdays. I make it an automatic rest day because we have cleaners come to the house and Levi can't hang, so I leave the house. When I need to be gone for the 2 to 3 hours with Levi, that means my workout time is gone. I know I won't work out later in the day, so it's a rest day. Now, while we're on the topic of being honest with ourselves, what time of day can you work out? I know myself, I can't start working out for myself any earlier than 8 a.m. because I walk Levi from 7 to 8 every single day. It's his time. Then I usually answer a few one-on-one coaching client questions in TrueCoach. Then I work out. So it's definitely not happening any earlier than 8 a.m. And if I put it off till later in the day, it's not going to happen. I used to think I was a night workout person. I didn't know what I didn't know. I definitely enjoy working out in the morning so much more. It's so much more enjoyable. So I can't wait. I can't put it off or it won't get done. So be honest with yourself. What time of day will work for you to work out? What time of day do you like working out? What time of day can your family handle you working out? How can they be by themselves and not need you for an hour or two so that you have that time to work out? Be very honest with yourself, because if you don't know or you aren't thinking correctly when you can work out, you're going to miss more and more workouts. And that is a recipe for overtraining in the long run. I know missing workout sounds like, oh, you'd be undertrained, but what we do after when we miss a workout is what makes us overtrain. So it ends up creating more problems, more injuries down the line. So let's start off on the right foot. Be honest with ourselves on specific days that we aren't going to be able to work out, specific vacations we aren't going to be able to work out, and specific times of day that we can work out. Okay, next is your strength training. How strong are you? If you're injury prone or you don't strength train regularly, then your muscles and joints likely aren't super strong. That's okay. I do recommend focusing on strength training before official Dopey training starts. This helps you prevent injuries that happen from overtraining during the training phase. So, can you do strength training while you're training? Yes, absolutely, and you should. You can do everything. You can do the running, the strength training, the stretching, the cross training. You can do everything. You just can't do it all at once. My mentor says that about running a business. You can do it all, you just can't do it all at once. Also, have you heard the phrase, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority? This is what I'm talking about. You should do strength training for injury prevention, but if you start when you're starting Dopey training, you're actually more likely to get injured because it will be too much on your muscles and joints. When you focus on strength training before Dopey training starts, you're stronger and less likely to get injured during training. If you start them both at the same time, you're twice as likely to get injured. So how strong are you? If you're injury prone or don't strength train regularly, start strength training for 3 months before Dopey training starts. So that's a big thing that affects your timeline because we have already looked at the calendar. When can't we work out? Now we're thinking well in advance with strength training. And I'm going to talk about cross training and run training, the actual training plan in a second. But now we're thinking, okay, now 3 months, we need to add on 3 months for strength training for Dopey. And that might still be during the previous RunDisney season when you need to focus on strength training. And that's okay. The thing you need to organize in your life, in your mind, is what is my priority? If my priority is Dopey, well, then strength training will be the priority, even if you're still training for something like Springtime Surprise. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So let's talk about cross training. So with cross training, there are a couple of components. So you definitely need a training plan that includes cross training. I know I have seen it in popular running plans that it says that the author, the runner, the coach who's writing it says something along the lines of cross-training is fine, but it won't make you a better runner. So I completely disagree with that. I think cross-training actually really, it makes you a better runner. It can make anybody a better runner, but especially somebody who's injury prone. So here is one of the reasons why. If you can't run or you don't want to run that many miles, you may need to rely more heavily on cross-training than running. So your training needs to start earlier. I've had runners in the past who want to or need to cross-train more than they run. I have one client in mind in particular who used to do triathlons, and they really liked cycling. So they wanted to do Dopey, but they wanted to have the least amount of miles running as possible. So they wanted to cycle a lot of the time and run fewer miles. That's fine. It's definitely possible, but it does extend the timeline. So it means that they need to start training for Dopey earlier. Or somebody who's injury prone, incorporating cross-training more during their training plan to make up for miles that they can't necessarily run. As an example, I just had a conversation with somebody the other day who is training for Princess, can't run more than about 4 miles or so at a time before their injury starts bugging them. Well, they still have the 7, 8, 9, and 10 miler to do. So using cross-training in this aspect, they can go and run 3 miles. So that's capping that run at 3 miles before they hit that time frame that aggravates their injuries. Then they then they go and cross-train Peloton for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. And then they go back and finish out the run and do another 3 miles. So the in-between cycle time will be, let's say it's half an hour. For somebody who runs a 15-minute per mile pace, well, that's the equivalent of 2 miles. So that 30-minute 3 for their quote-unquote long run, well, now that's the equivalent of an 8-mile long run. But that you need to be strategic with it because you're going to end up needing time to coordinate your training schedule, your training cycle, especially if you don't have a Peloton at home, you have to go to the gym for it, so on and so forth. So this goes into when you need to train during your training cycle, but also if you're going to rely more on cross-training, it extends your training timeline. You need to start sooner. Okay, and then the last part of this is your actual training plan. So you need to download your training plan. And if you're looking for one that has slow and steady buildup, so you make progress without getting injured, download mine for free on my website. I'll link it in the show notes. But look at your training plan. Most training plans for Dopey are anywhere from 4 to 7 months. For injury-prone runners, I do recommend the training plan be on the longer side. This allows for life to get lifey, and you can have deload weeks, meaning you back off on how many miles you're running that week every month or so. Mine has every 6 weeks. This allows your body to adjust to the recent buildup without overtraining. So my training plan is 6.5 months. But take your training plan, whether it be mine or someone else's, and see when it starts. Most training plans make you count backward from race day. They'll just say week 1, week 2, week 3, all the way up to week 28, 29, and count backward and see when you need to start. My training plan, it has a start date right on there, and you'll get weekly emails with the running training each week while you're training. So this is the second biggest factor of when you'll train for your race, the training plan you choose. So you need to choose the one that is the appropriate length for you. So if you're injury prone, choose one that is on the longer end. You want to give yourself adequate time for, like I said, life to get lifey, where things go awry, the kids get sick, you get sick, something happens at work, you miss a whole week of training. Well, when that happens, when you use the right training plan, especially one that has those deload weeks, swap that deload week. But you need to look at what your training plan says, how long it is, to be able to determine when you need to start training for Dopey. My Dopey training plans start July 6th. That gives you about 6.5 months of training, or 6 months in a week. I can't do math apparently, but you want it to be on the longer side. And then look at where that training plan starts, like what the first long run is. All of my training plans beyond a 5K, if you're doing my 0 to 5K training plans, it obviously doesn't start at this same distance. All of my training plans start at a 5K. That's because base building in my coaching world for my clients, my one-on-one clients, my program clients who are in things like Stronger, Faster, Finisher, that does a 0 to 5K buildup, because that gives you that timeline, that time frame to slowly build up your miles until that first starting point. Looking at your training plan, look at that first long run. Can you do that distance already? Like regularly, have you been doing that distance when you download that training plan? If not, how long will it take you to build up to get to that distance? So if it's a 5K distance and you've been doing nothing, that's fine. Just know it's going to take you 12 to 15 weeks to get to that 5K distance, especially if you're following the correct 10% rule that I truly believe is perfect for somebody who is injury prone. That's the slow and steady buildup, and making it so that you can run more, progress more, get stronger, and run for a longer amount of time, more miles without overtraining, without getting injured. So that will add to your timeline. Now, of course, doing that base building, that's not considered official Dopey training, but it does go into the whole thing. So going back to this person who we started talking about in the beginning, she can run a 5K. So that's great. So we don't need to, if she came to me as a client, we wouldn't need to worry about getting her to a 5K unless she had pain. Then we have to back off and build back up, because nobody wants to run with pain if they don't have to. And 90% of runners with pain don't have to be running with pain. It's something that can be handled, it can be managed, it can be addressed, it can be gotten rid of. So she can already run a 5K. So we wouldn't necessarily need to do the 0 to 5K buildup, but we still need to do the 3 months of strength training and maintain that 5K distance to be able to get started from that 5K distance in July. So that's going to be a component of it as well. So those are the top 4 related to when you should train for Dopey. Take a look at your calendar, relate it to your race. If you're injury prone, choose a training plan that gives you the time, allows you to use cross training, and start strength training before you officially start training. So about 3 months ahead of time. So this means for Dopey, I've mentioned a couple times, Dopey official training, if you're following my training plan, it starts July 6th. So you'll start your strength training 3 months before that. So my strength program, as an example, Stronger, Faster, Finisher, for my clients doing Dopey, Marathon, and Goofy, that starts March 23rd. This gives 3.5 months of strength training before official Dopey training even starts. And I do it 3.5 months because then you can kind of have some off time before you officially start training, get things organized. You know, a lot of people go on vacation right around that 4th of July time frame, and Dopey training starts July 6th. So those middle 2 weeks before Stronger, Faster, Finisher, then you got a 2-week break before official training starts. And that's perfect because give your body a little bit of a rest, get things organized before you get into 6.5 months of Dopey training or marathon training. This will get injury-prone runners strong and not trying to do everything all at once. You can do it all, you just can't do it all at once. Give yourself that buffer. For the runners that want to finish their next RunDisney race stronger and faster so you stop getting injured, you beat the balloon leads, and you cross the finish line, I invite you to check out my newest program, Stronger, Faster, Finisher. Get the workouts you need to build speed, stamina, and strength. If that sounds like something you're looking for your next race, visit the link in the show notes to learn more. As always, thanks so much for listening. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.